Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 3 p.m. Central, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. It's always a fun ride. Thank you so much for the emails. I definitely appreciate it. Send more, because you're the reason I do this, and you're the boss of me. So you can tell me any suggestions, anything you would like for me to go ahead and comment on. I'll be glad to do that for you. You can send an email to donna@donnasedge.com. Now, you can find us on the radio, icradio.media. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast, thenewscasters.com. And again, this is where truth matters. I have with me a very special friend, Alan Mendenhall, and he's with Troy University. Alan, hello. Thank you for being on the show. And I've been telling Alan this forever. Alan, you need to have your own podcast and go to the newscasters. They would love to have you there.
Well, thank you, Donna. You're very kind. And I want to apologize, first of all. My camera is up here, but your face is down here. So your viewers are going to have me looking off screen because I'm looking at your face. It seems odd to look up at my camera and talk to you when your face is down here.
That's okay. Wait, I mean, you really need two cameras because you guys do a lot at Troy University anyway, right?
We sure do.
Interview quite a few folks yourself.
We do, and we actually have multiple TV studios that we can use. My own television show, Success Stories, is shot out of the Montgomery campus. So the TV studio there is above the Rosa Parks Museum. And then the TV studio here is in the same building as the library, and it's back out this window and that way. And we've got sort of state-of-the-art technology in that TV studio.
Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful thing. And I was telling you, television and actually hosting shows is different than it used to be. I used to dread remotes. I hated those because I would have to have the guy with the lights. I would have to have the guy and they're temperamental now. They're a little different. So it would be the camera guy, we'd have 3 cameras, and then there would be the lighting guy. There would be 6 lights he would have to set up, a green screen, the whole works. And now everything's pretty much well portable.
Yeah, I remember going on, of all things, Al Jazeera back in like 2015, and I was in Montgomery, and it was an unexpected invitation, and I went on to talk about the age of U.S. Supreme Court justices, and a driver came and picked me up and drove me to the main RSA building down off of Union Street down in Montgomery, and I went in, and there's a TV studio and green screen. It was a lot of work, and I wasn't used to doing much TV back then. It's been about a decade, so I'd say maybe it has been a full decade. But I remember how nervous I was, and now not just another thing to do now.
It's a lot of fun. If the bug ever gets you, I mean, you're caught. You will never change careers. It's a whole lot of fun. I wanted to talk to you about the financial world. We are in an upheaval. Things are just weird. And I'll have to tell you what happened over the weekend. I had this panic mode in myself where I told Phil, I said, Phil, make sure that the cars are filled up with fuel. I'm expecting fuel to just hike up. But we're in that kind of a world right now. How can you survive it?
Well, I mean, we've got some global conflicts that are driving a lot of the energy crisis. For example, Russia, Ukraine is the obvious one. You've got countries like Germany that had gotten rid of all its nuclear that have now had to go back to nuclear in light of that conflict. Of course, you've got Israel, Palestine, and those are petroleum-rich areas of the world. And so the conflicts there tend to ripple across economies all over the globe. But a big factor in the entire economy, the global economy, has to do with the large asset management firms, institutional investors, and what they are doing in the space of ESG. So globally, there are $100 trillion of assets under management. Well, that's a lot of money. There are only 3,000 something billionaires in the world. There are only 700 something billionaires in the United States, only one in Alabama. And so you can't get to $100 trillion in private wealth. It's just not possible. Of course, there is private wealth wrapped into that, insurance money and 401ks and mutual funds. But what you're seeing is a lot of those assets are government money. So either state and federal pension money, sovereign wealth funds. So oil-rich nations like Norway or Saudi Arabia, just to give two examples, will have large sovereign wealth funds, and they'll invest those. You'll see municipal bonds, for example, get invested. So a lot of this money is government money that gets invested. That's how you get to the $100 trillion figure. There are three asset management firms that control between somewhere in the range of 20 and $30 trillion. They have 20 to $30 trillion of asset under management. That would be BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. And they exercise a great degree of control over publicly traded companies because they are the largest shareholders in many, many companies. And they are, they control quite a bit of the, just for example, the S&P 500 or the New York Stock Exchange. A lot of those publicly traded companies, they're the primary holders. And they're the primary holders. I think those three are the three biggest holders, at least in 2023, of Regions Bank, which is a large publicly traded company here in Alabama. And they have their own agenda, and a lot of it is driven by net zero emissions or any various form of climate related issues that are tied to the United Nations or tied to different global compacts and global coalitions and intergovernmental organizations. And it's good to bear in mind that the United Nations itself has about roughly 70 to 75% of its funding coming from governments. So it's very interesting how government, not just here in the United States, but globally, is driving a lot of the climate-related initiatives that force prices to go up. And we all feel it. We feel it at the gas pump. We feel it when we're just making everyday purchases. And it's highly problematic. I guess the one final thing I'll say about these issues related to climate is traditionally investing involved basically two factors. One was the maximization of returns, because that's why you invest money, is to yield returns. If you want to give to charity or give to philanthropy, you give to charity or you give to philanthropy. You don't go buy an index fund, and that's not what you do. You didn't go buy an ESG weighted portfolio or something like that. But the other was to mitigate risk, so maximize returns and mitigate risk. Well, when you hear a lot of ESG proponents or a lot of the people who are advocating for social values-based investing rather than financial returns, they will point to risks of climate change, whether it's flooding or tornadoes or severe weather or whatever it is. But they always point to long-term risks. They say, well, the risks of climate change are long-term. You need to take the long view. Well, the benefit of advocating for that perspective is that in 2 to 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years, if the catastrophes you have predicted haven't actually occurred, you can say, oh, well, you just haven't taken a long enough view yet. Just keep waiting. This disaster will befall us eventually. But when it never does, they can always kick the can down the road and continue to advocate for whatever climate policy they favor at that particular moment.
But the problem is it seems like we're being ruled by fear. And I've heard my granddad talk about the Great Depression. He actually bought a farm. We bought the farm, and we're living on the farm my granddad actually bought back in the 30s. Yay! In more ways than one. But something, he didn't ignore there was a Great Depression. He didn't ignore that. He said it was tough. They did a lot of bartering and things back in that day. But he also believed in setting goals. So he went on ahead and set a goal. He didn't like being in debt. He bought this farm in the 1930s for like $5,000, and it's 38 acres and all that, But that was a lot of money back then. And so he had a goal set. He wanted he said, whatever it takes, I'm going to have this thing paid off in 2 years. And he met his goal. So he was like number one, person about you need to set goals. I don't care what the climate is in the political world. I don't care what the climate is in anything. You work and you set goals. Do you see a correlation between my granddad back in that day and then of what is it a different kind of an issue with financial problems that people are having? Or is it different because of technology?
Well, I guess there are differences and similarities as there are in every era. Um,
Mhm.
and I would say first of all, I would agree with you on the importance of setting goals and making them targeted goals. Yes, they should be aspirational, but they should also be doable, achievable. You can't, if
Right.
you set goals that are impossible to meet, then you're just going to be discouraged. But in terms of global economy, yeah, we're not. We may be technically in a recession, as that term is defined by experts, but it's not a global depression. We're not in that type of situation. But we also have problems with our country taking on whatever figure we're at, 34 trillion in our national debt, and we have
That's
student
not
loan
good.
bailouts, and people
Mhm.
people not really appreciating that there are consequences for these actions, and
Mhm.
eventually somebody's going to be left to deal with it. I know we're in a situation, interestingly, where there's a vast concentration of wealth in sort of the older generations. And over the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to see one of the most significant wealth transfers from one generation to another since such things have been recorded. And that will be interesting to see. I think young people, they do come out of college saddled with debt. And that's a problem that is sparked by the federal student loans. This is no longer
Mhm.
the age of the GI Bill, where not that many people were going to college, but some people would get on the GI Bill and they'd have their college paid for, whatever. Now, a
Mhm.
lot of people are going to college, and they're doing it through student loans. And universities have hiked up the cost of tuition. They've hired a lot of administrators, and they've elevated salaries to sort of artificially high rates, not rates that you would see based on market demand, definitely. And the cost of tuition have risen such that colleges are unaffordable to a lot of people. And so they take out student loans, and then they become saddled with debt, and it takes them a long time to work their way out. We have some colleges that are now reaching the $100,000 mark for annual tuition, and that's a
Mhm.
lot of money. That's a lot of money,
Mhm.
and not very many people can afford to pay such costs. So if they're not getting some kind of financial aid and not supplementing their um, tuition with some kind of scholarship money or whatever it is, then they're going to start off way behind previous generations. And
Right.
the fact of the matter is, for a lot of business, a lot of jobs, the workplace skills required don't involve anything you learn in a classroom in college. And so for a lot of different fields, college really isn't necessary. And I think that a lot of young people are starting to wake up to that reality and say, hey, look,
Mhm.
I can go into plumbing and make a pretty good living and not have to spend X amount on my tuition dollars every 4 years and then get into debt that I'm constantly digging my way out of. And they could find unique ways to make money. One thing I love about living in Alabama is finding out all these ways people make money that are just really interesting, ways I never would have thought about. And you see a lot of entrepreneurs doing it. Whether it's owning a trailer park or working in waste management or whatever it is. I keep meeting these people who've made a lot of money doing really interesting things.
Mhm. I think it's pretty amazing. I really do. But let me ask you this because, when I was going to school, the big drive was go to college, get your degree, go to college, get your degree. And
Hmm.
but now it seems to be taking another form. And you really talked about that just a few minutes ago, and that's the trades job.
Yeah.
Do you think, and just look, let's just go forward. So do you think since the push seems to be trade jobs right now, will that cause the cost of college jobs or going to college to go down? Is that a
Well,
possibility?
It's
Someone's
a
got to go to
possibility.
college and pay for all the professors and all that.
Well, more likely, what I think you'll see, at least in the short term, is schools like Birmingham Southern, which are going out of business. And you're going to see a lot more small colleges going out of business. The big colleges will be able to sort of just sustain themselves and work through and be the last man standing, as it were. You know, when smaller schools start falling off and they've spent down their endowments, the schools with big endowments that are, big state schools that enjoy big state funding, are big private schools like, for example, all the Ivy Leagues, they couldn't spend their endowment down if they wanted to. Those schools will all remain, and it'll just be a different playing field. Now, what I don't know is what this will mean for, say, community colleges, which do focus on sort of more technical and trades skills and instruction. Will those enjoy a benefit from this period, or will the reasoning that there's nothing I could learn in college that I couldn't learn better in the workplace win out? Will that be the mentality that wins out among young people? And I really don't know the answer to the question. I know a lot of universities are looking for non-traditional learners, so they're looking for people who are trying to go back to college to get their degree in their 40s, 50s, even 60s. But even that supply will run out, and I think international enrollment is down a little bit. Universities were getting used to bringing in lots of students from, for example, China, but now we've got sort of diplomatic issues with China and sort of geopolitical conflicts that affect the number of international students we can bring in from various regions. So all these things are factors on what universities are doing. Enrollment declines are a real thing. There's a proverbial cliff that we're supposed to hit in 2025, which is just 1 year away. And that's when there's just a major drop in 18-year-olds. And we'll see that for a long time because people are having fewer children. So, I think college will look very different in 20 years. I can't predict what that will be with the rise of artificial intelligence. What will humanities departments look like? Will ChatGPT be writing papers? Is there any way to grade a human paper anymore? I don't know. We're in a transformative period, and when transformative periods happen, they're difficult to make predictions about.
Well, they're difficult to make predictions, but I'm going to tell you what, if you look at the gloom on everything, and I know some bad things can come out of AI. I know they can. But I'm older than you, so I can definitely remember when computers came out. And I definitely remember when people were saying, oh, give it another 20 years and computers will be taking over the world. Well, I mean, anytime anybody asks me, are computers taking over the world? I'm like, are you kidding me? No, there has to be someone at the keyboard. Well, I mean, a computer doesn't have a mind of its own, and neither does AI.
Right. Nothing that humans don't endow it with. We'll put it that way. But I'm sort of with you. I don't have a lot of anxiety about technology. Of course, humans are humans, and so we're always flawed, and we're always going to create some bad things. And I guess the question is, do we create something that's just catastrophic? I don't know. But I think more likely we'll see great advancements in technology. We'll have robots that can clean our houses and do mundane tasks like handle our bills and do the mail and just basic things like that would be wonderful. And actually, the ChatGPT thing is very helpful in little things like I let's say I want to write a letter of recommendation for a student who has these qualities, and I've known this person this way. Generate them, and it pops out. And whereas I wouldn't use what popped out because I have my own way of saying things, I have my own unique voice, I have my own relationship with the person, at least you get an organizational structure that says, oh yeah, that's a good way of writing a letter. I probably wouldn't have done it that way, but I kind of like the format of that. So you might mimic the format or whatever it is, or you might, I know I've gotten in arguments with ChatGPT before about some particular topic, and like, that's not right at all. And it's sort of beneficial to go through that process as well. You can ask it to make an outline. I had a talk that I wanted to give based on the paper I'd written. And so I plugged in the paper and I said, give me 10 bullet points from this paper. And it was my own paper. I put it in there and it generated 10 bullet points. It just, in a second, summarized my entire talk in 10 bullet points. Now, there were a couple bullet points like, that's not what I said or what I meant. So I didn't use those for my talk, but it was great because then I didn't have to go through and take the time to reread my whole paper and put my own bullet points in there. And it was great. I thought that was very helpful.
I have a lot of different segments on the show, and it's kind of like a variety show. So that our listeners and the folks who watch the show are pretty much the boss of me. They tell me what they want to hear and what they want to see, and they want to hear more about finance and how can we save money and that kind of thing. So I did a segment just on selling on eBay. Just clean your closets. I mean, you can always find something that we have stuff. Stuff that we bought.
That segment because I need to learn how to do that.
I'll find it for you.
You should do that. You should do that segment. Do that segment and I'll watch it because I need to learn how to do that myself. I've got so much stuff. I've always given things away to Goodwill, but there are things that I don't know what Goodwill will do with. But I need to sell some stuff.
It's true what they say. It's true what they say. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Yeah. Believe it or not, I have some clothes that are designer clothing my grandmother wore. There is a market for vintage clothes that are, there's a market for it. There is a market for anything. So let me tell you something I've discovered about eBay. So they use AI. So now they won't throw it at you. You can click a little box and it will go on ahead and put the description up there for you. I promise you it's much better than anything I could do. Almost. There are a few things to tweak. I've had to tweak like you said you had to do. Be ready to tweak something because you will have to do that. But I like the way I put one of my grandmother's vintage suits that very expensive back in the day. And it sold just like that. And I think it was because of AI. Because they were able to put the description on there much better than I ever could have. Because I didn't remember the designer. There was a designer also, Agner. I don't know if you remember Agner, but back in the day, it's kind of slipped a little bit. It's not got like it used to be. But Agner was a very nice designer leather company. And they made wonderful handbags. And it was just a simple A on it, A for Agner. There's a market for that. You can go to thrift stores, find Agner stuff. You can you can find the stuff, buy it for almost nothing and sell it on eBay for quite a bit. But the point is you would be able to do that if you know what to look for, if you got the eye for it and you go to yard sales or you go to thrift stores. And I know Shepherd's Cove Thrift Shop is one of my sponsors, and they've been around for a long time. I found an Agner belt still had the tag on it. For some reason, I guess someone may have passed away. It could have been, they just, gave a bunch of stuff to the thrift store. And so it had the original price, even back in the 1970s, I thought was pretty high. It was around $75 just for the belt. So I put it on there, still had original tag, never been worn, and sold it for $50.
Wow, that's so neat.
So,
I've got a bed, a king size bed.
I paid $1. I paid $1 for it at the thrift store.
Unbelievable. So you could buy it at the thrift store and then resell.
Yeah, I made $49.
Wow.
So that's what we're trying to show people what they can do, because and it's not near as bad as I've heard my granddad talk about the Depression and everybody I know from that era. They had to go into bartering. They had to go into different things. And there were the naysayers. I remember my granddad talking about, don't ever listen to naysayers. I would have never paid this farm off in 2 years had I listened to other people. They were saying, Scott, you're never going to pay that farm off in 2 years. We're in a depression. Well, he didn't listen to them. So he worked 2 jobs and had his farm and he raised some peanuts and was able to sell a lot of peanuts, and that helped him pay the farm off. But there's a number of things that we need to really pay attention to, and that's, don't listen to naysayers. Please don't listen to them. If you feel it in your gut, you can do it, go for it, is all I can say. And then AI, there are things that we hear it can be. And yes, there's that possibility. The one loose nut cannon can get out there and make life a whole disaster for us with AI. But right now, we're sending on some pretty good things with AI that I've checked out.
Yeah, no, it's fun to play with. Yeah, the AI is fun to play with. It's fun to experiment with. I use ChatGPT in an assignment in one of my business law classes because I want to show the benefits and the shortcomings of ChatGPT. So I assign a recent Alabama Supreme Court case, and it's always every semester so recent that ChatGPT hasn't had a chance to go through and mine the internet and find the information because it's not out there public where ChatGPT can use all that. But I make the students write essays using ChatGPT, and they have to write essays based on this case that ChatGPT has no access to, and that forces them to go read the case and figure out what concepts are involved in the case, and then plug those into ChatGPT, and then plug the facts into Chat. So they're having to interact with the case, and I find that to be a very constructive assignment. Now, eventually, ChatGPT will probably instantaneously have access to those cases, but right now it doesn't. And I think it's really interesting that students have to engage with the Supreme Court decision in order to know how to use ChatGPT to generate the essay. And it's a fun little assignment. I don't grade it very harshly at all. In fact, it's probably the most lenient assignment I give because ChatGPT is ultimately producing the essay. But every now and then you'll get one assignment from a student that's just completely off topic, and it's like, well, I don't know how you got ChatGPT to write this essay about a hamburger or something, when that has nothing to do with the case. But anyway, it's a good way to sort of slowly initiate students into getting used to using artificial intelligence in the classroom, and as a professor, to acclimate myself to the use of artificial intelligence in the classroom. Eventually, it'll be all over the place, and so it's best to start experimenting now because we don't know what ways we'll use it 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 6 years from now. Who knows?
Who knows? But something? I still think we need the old with the new. Let's go into a commercial break, and we'll be right back in just a few minutes. Can you believe half the show is already over? My goodness, Alan. Let's go into a break. We'll be right back.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you.
The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mendenhall. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors, and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-27
2018.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
Good afternoon. We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. We like to speak the truth, and Alan Mendenhall likes to speak the truth as well. Alan is an author, a speaker. He's a talk show host. He does all kinds of stuff. Alan, how can folks find your work?
Well, the easiest way, Donna, is probably just going to my website, which is www.alanmendenhall.com, ALLENMENDENHALL, and just searching around, clicking around there.
And you'll find some good stuff. I'm going to tell you, I've got some of his books. And go on ahead and check it out. You'll learn a lot. We're talking a little bit about AI, but so I'm putting together a show also. I've interviewed several people about this, and I'm probably going to use this clip right now in the show. Okay, so I'm going to take this part out. So let's talk just a little bit about this. And this is about bots. Okay. So bots are AI. I mean, really, they put information. You order something on Amazon, Walmart, or whatever. Walmart is one of our sponsors. And so you order something, maybe there's a problem with the order. And so maybe it's after hours, which is usually, the only time I can ever, try to get something resolved after hours. So I'm fussing and I'm yelling and I'm screaming at a bot that I'm typing in from. It has no feeling. I mean, it doesn't know I'm yelling. It doesn't know that I'm mad. It doesn't know I'm ticked off. But I'm yelling at it just the same. I still say we need to have AI, but we also need to have a little bit of that old-fashioned customer service where you can pick up a phone and you can call someone because they can understand what you're talking about. There was something that happened about an order on eBay. And so I'm yelling at a bot, I'm fussing at it. And the bot keeps thinking that it's something I bought. Well, it's not anything I bought. It was something I sold. I was trying to take care of a customer. They didn't have their order yet. And here I am just typing, I'm just mad and all this kind of stuff. Then I finally got to talk to somebody at eBay. Oh, it was so much better. So I know innovation is good. I think AI is going to be good. But no, we also need the good old fashioned where you can sit down and talk to somebody. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree. I think no matter what, the human element of business will never go away, in particular on that customer service side and the marketing side. I mean, people are drawn to people and we understand each other, and we've all been through frustrating experiences, so we know what it's like when somebody else is frustrated. Now, what the bot does in that situation, I think, is it does mitigate damage to the extent that only certain people who are a certain degree of upset get through to the human, and that way the people that are on the customer service side are able to maintain their cheery attitude because they're not just completely jaded by having to deal with people who are angry with them all the time, all day long. So maybe there's a filtering mechanism there that the chat serves, and I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. But I think having both is great because maybe you're in a position where you don't need to talk to the human and you do just want to handle it by chat. I tend to prefer dealing with a chat bot more than I like getting put through on phone. If I pick up the phone to call, I want to talk to the human. And I don't want to hit 1 and then hit 2 and then get transferred to 3 and just talk to a computer over and over and over again.
It's never the one I need. They'll say press 1 for this, press 2 for that, and I'm like, well, I don't hear one that I need.
And we're always hitting 0. I want 0. Where's the operator? Like, give me straight to that operator. But if it's a chat bot, usually if I'm engaging with a chat bot, it's because I want to engage with a chat bot. There's usually a reason why I've gotten on something to talk to it. Very rarely do I find myself in a situation where I'm stuck talking to a chat bot that I don't really want to talk to. But again, I think the more interactions that these bots have with real humans, the better they're going to get at what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, with time.
Because they're
Absolutely, with
learning.
time.
They're learning. They may not have emotions. They don't have human agency. They just, that's why they're called artificial intelligence. They're really smart, but they're not human.
Well, I want to ask you another question. So because we're thinking about businesses, we need to always think about the future of our business. We need to be planning now for what we want to do in 5, 10, 20 years or whatever. We need to do that. It's extremely important. So I'm seeing the advancement of AI. I think it's going to get better and better with time. So let me ask you this question. So let's say I'm a business owner and I've decided, this is business owner number one. Business owner number one has decided, eventually I just want everything to be AI. I don't want to hire anybody. I just want everything to be AI. But then there's another business owner number two, and this one says, something, I like AI, but I still think I'd like to have a human to be on standby. I know it's going to be good. 5, 10 years, it's going to be better. Which one do you think would be the most successful business owner in the long run? The one who pays somebody every once in a blue moon to at least answer the phone, or the one who just does all AI?
Oh, I think the one with the humans. I think you can't get rid of the human element. I mean, people are drawn to people. So, I think artificial intelligence can help eliminate a lot of mundane tasks, things that nobody really wants to be doing or can do math. I mean, I know you can use it to solve all kinds of math problems rather than sitting out there and doing long division or whatever. I know we have calculators, but you can give it word problems and ask it questions, and it can give you mathematical answers. And so there are situations like that eliminate the work that you have to do, and that's helpful. But in terms of face-to-face engagement and sympathy, empathy, identification, culture, organizational culture, you need humans for those types of things. So, I think everybody wants their personal job to be made easier in the sense that I don't want to have to work as hard at what I do. And that's where artificial intelligence can be very helpful. But it still means that the people are there doing their jobs. They're just doing it more efficiently and effectively because of the supplement, because of the help they're getting. And does it mean that some jobs may get eliminated? Yeah, absolutely. But how many more are getting created because of the freedom that AI has created? Now you've got, you may have had to eliminate some positions, X, Y, Z, but you created, W, N, P, C, D, and F. All these things became available because the job of X, Y, and Z are not necessary anymore. We now have better roles for these people to play. So that it's the one thing with economics is it's always about the unseen. But people look around even now and they think about how bad the economy is, which is not in a great spot. But what we don't see is what would it look like out here if we didn't have all these other things that happened, 100 years ago. You compare quality of life, standard of living that we enjoy to what people 100 years ago dealt with. And it's amazing that the advances of science and technology and medicine and communications. Wow, we live in a really special time, but because we don't see, 1924 when we look around and we're not living in 1924, it's difficult for us to appreciate how good we actually do have it, even if, yes, relatively speaking, the economy is not great right now. But compared to what it was not that long ago, yeah, well, we're doing actually pretty well as a species.
I think we're doing pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And I'll have to tell you something. Okay, so I grew up in the 70s. And so in my car, in the back seat, I had this big case full of 8-track tapes. I'm really glad that all I've got to do is get on my cell phone now and download the app for my favorite music. I'm glad I don't have those crazy 8-tracks. And by the way, you couldn't keep them in the car very long in the hot sun. They'd melt.
Oh, yeah.
And then they would start sounding weird. So I'm pretty happy with that technology.
Me too. And I can recall like if a song came on the radio and it was one you'd wanted to hear, it was just, whoa, amazing. I can't believe this song's on. But now you can just find it anywhere. And even when like Kazaa, Napster, and those things came out, and you had to start downloading music, and it's even easier now. You can find anything immediately. In fact, you used to have to, if you want to do a karaoke thing, you had to buy a karaoke machine. Now you can just put YouTube up on your smart TV and put in whatever song you want, and then we'll type karaoke, and then it'll give you the lyrics will come across. It'll give you the karaoke version. You can sing in your own dim living room all you want to that karaoke song. I'm not saying I've done this now. I'm just saying that you could if you wanted to.
So wait a minute. Do I hear a singing career maybe coming out of you?
I don't think so. I think you have to have an audience for that.
There you go. Okay. Now, life's got a little easier for us. Okay. We can have things basically on demand, whatever we're looking for right now. Now I need to ask you another scenario. What if we have all electric cars, then something happens to the grid because it can't take the overload? I mean, what's going to happen? Because we're using all these conveniences. And I mean, we're only, let's say we go a month without electricity. What's going to happen to the major populations of the world? What would happen?
Donna, I have no idea, but I remember in 2017 when I was selling the house, not the house I live in now, but the house I lived in before, and I had it up for sale. I had just read some article, and who knows who wrote it, where it was. It was probably something like Wired magazine or something. I don't know where it was. But this was, it's been what? How long was 2017? 7 years ago now. The article was predicting that in the near future, houses would not have garages because people would not need to buy cars anymore, because only the people that would have cars would be the ride share type people, the Ubers, but that everybody else would just sort of take Ubers to and from work. And, that's how we would get around. And yeah, so some people, the very fortunate, might have their own car, but it would be an expense that people would do away with, and we'd all be ride sharing. And yeah, maybe you see some of that happening in like DC or New York, where people don't have a car, some major city. But
not in my neck of the woods. I'm out in the country.
No, in mine either. I'm commuting all over the place. I live an hour and a half or 2 hours from my offices, and so I'm driving all over, but it wouldn't work for me.
I mean, there are some things I think we worry about that we don't need to be worried about. Yeah. I do think, though, we need to know the basics. And so a huge part of this audience here who watch the show, they're concerned about, they say, well, I want to buy a plot of land. I want to have a garden. I want to do, a lot of people now want to know how to do their own gardening for several reasons, not just because they're worried about supply versus demand. They're worried about what's in their food. So you can see we have more things to be concerned about, I think, than my granddad did. He had it rough in the Depression, but we have a whole new set of challenges now.
Well, yeah, I mean, just in terms of weapons capability too, it's a frightening time to be alive, because any push of the button could cause all kinds of damage. I know this weekend, with the conflict escalation between Israel and Iran, my kids were freaking out. Basically, they were terrified, and I had to say, look, guys, we're in Alabama. We're probably in one of the safest places you can be. Terrorist attacks and these kinds of things typically happen in major cities, and you just don't stress out about it. You could worry all you want, because I remember when I was a kid, there was something called the Sarah-Tokars murders, and they took place in Atlanta, and they were right down the road from me. And every night I would go to bed thinking I was next. Somebody was going to come break into our house and kill us all. I was terrified, so I don't want my kids to be petrified. But there are genuinely concerning things out there to worry about, and it is a scary world, but it's always been a scary world, and it's also always been a good world, and there's also been a lot of joy and a lot of goodness. And so life is like that. If it were all one constant state, then there wouldn't be such thing as happiness or unhappiness, or happiness or sadness.
Mhm.
You can only understand one without the other. There's no such thing as good if there's not a bad. How do you know which one's which without the other? So sometimes you have to experience both in order to understand reality. It's just what life is. Life has good and it has bad, just as the world has good circumstances and bad circumstances.
Well, during the Depression, a lot of millionaires were made. I think it's
For sure.
because they turned their hats a different way.
Yeah.
I think, how much of it do you think is mindset?
I think a lot. I think a lot because all these great phrases that no one uses anymore. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. That's a great phrase. I mean,
Mhm.
you have two options. You could sit around and you could mope about it. You could despair, or you could roll up your sleeves and do something. And it's the people that take the latter approach that really, I think, come out of hard times and end up finding what they're looking for, which is at a minimum contentment. And it's because they're willing to work through the hard parts. And, not everyone is.
Yeah, sometimes we have to be around, just kind of hold the hands of other people and drag them out of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're given that. But I wanted to talk to you about division, because the division in our country is at an all-time high. I don't remember ever seeing it like it is right now. I mean, even what happened this weekend, there were some people who were on the side of Israel, and then, I mean, it's just really uncanny. Why do you
Yeah,
think
it
we've
is.
reached this spot?
Well, not so much on the Israel-Iran divide, but on the Israel-Palestine divide, you see a lot of young people
Yeah.
taking various positions,
Uh-huh.
and among the Democratic Party, you see a lot of range within opinions. I think that is going to hurt Biden in the next election, because it's a diplomatic issue, a geopolitical controversy that he can't avoid. He has to talk about it. He has to take a position on it as President of the United States. And no matter what, it will be unpopular among a large swath of the Democratic voters. So he's sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't on that one. And I see this only really benefiting Trump, mainly because Republicans, of course, are not a uniform group, but they're much more uniform on this issue than the Democrats are. Not in the broader conservative tradition, you may get a wider variety of people, but those people are still probably going to vote Republican, regardless of that issue. Whereas, I don't know where sort of a pro-Palestinian 24-year-old at Columbia University votes. I mean, it's like what third-party ticket, and I don't know what someone like that does in this kind of election, unless it's just a vote against Donald Trump.
It's, I mean, really, it's just strange. So let me ask you about, the election coming
Yeah.
up. I really can't see how Biden can win, because, I mean, when you are campaigning because of an issue like women's rights, we'll just use that. That seems to be all they know to campaign for. Women's rights, abortion is okay. It doesn't matter if the baby's laying out on the table. I mean, it doesn't really even matter to a lot of folks. But in the long run, don't they vote with their pocketbook? I mean, in the long run, even people who say, yeah, I think it's a woman's right. I really do. But we're having a hard time paying bills right now.
Yeah. Yeah. My instinct tells me, yeah. I don't know empirically the answer to that question. But I know also people sort of, when they don't feel that the economy is doing well, they want to change. They want, I think the polls right now are showing Trump just a hair ahead of Biden. But they're both somewhere around 45% in the general election. But it's hard to say. There's still in politics. There's still a ton of time before the election.
A lot of things can happen right now.
a lot of things can happen, and it's it's interesting because this is kind of the first presidential rematch election we've had since 1956. So that makes this election interesting in that regard. I can remember when you and I were talking back. It was I don't even think I think it was during primary season before the 2020 election when Biden hadn't even been the nominee yet. We were talking about how Trump and Biden were threatening each other, and they were going to take each other out to the woodshed or something like that. Excuse me. But that doesn't seem like very long ago to me, but it turns out it was pretty long ago.
Mm-hmm. It's just all pretty different. So let's talk about it. And then we also have Kennedy who's coming in. Okay, so do you think he's going to hurt Trump more or Biden? Which one do you think it could cause an issue with?
I don't know the answer to that because I see that getting debated on television, and I've never seen anybody prove anything statistically. So I don't know. My hunch is that it hurts Biden more than Trump, but because I think the people that, I think Kennedy brings things to the table in terms of information or in terms of subject matters that are sort of off limits in mainstream media, but Trump does that too. And so I think the people that are already drawn to that, like that are already in Trump's world, are going to stay with Trump. They're not going to go to the other person. But I think the people that are Democrats who just aren't willing to go to Trump, but have maybe started asking questions or become skeptical about general information that they hear in the media from NPR or whatever, are more likely to lean toward Kennedy. It's like almost their Ross Perot. He's almost like the Democrats' Ross Perot, if we're going to draw an analogy to a prior period. Not that I would compare Kennedy and Perot in terms of policy or demeanor or anything like that, but just in terms of third-party candidate having an effect. I think Perot hurt Bush in a way that Kennedy might hurt Biden.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that too. And I will have to say this: I did vote for Ross Perot. I didn't like Daddy Bush, and I didn't like Clinton either. So, and then my mother, a Republican, my dad, a Democrat. I didn't tell them for years. So I knew it would cause World War III with them. But there's so many things we have to think about right now. That we've never had to think about before.
Yeah.
Another one of those is getting folks out to vote because, a lot of folks really, really, and I'm one of them, I really feel like the election was overturned. I really don't think Biden won. I just don't. Logically, to me, it doesn't appear that way. But how do we talk to those folks? You still have to get out and vote. You have to.
Well, I think
if you're educated. I remember what you said on the last show.
Yeah, well, I sort of feel like, I've forgotten we had talked about that in the last one, but I feel as if
we had that little debate.
if you have a strong opinion, you should vote. It's as simple as that. If you don't care and you're just really, then maybe you should
stay on.
If you don't care at all, but if you care, you should go. You should vote. But if you have no opinion whatsoever and you could care less who gets in there, then may as well not waste your time. I don't think it's good to have an apathetic populace. I think it's better to have people that care. But if in fact there are people who don't, I'd rather them not show up at the polls and vote for whatever reason they're voting, which is not,
You changed my mind. You changed my mind on the last show. You really did. I got to thinking about that. Wait a minute. He's right. He's right, because if you're not going to get out there and do some research of some sort and just find out what in the world is going on, don't vote. Stay home. Absolutely.
Well, what happens is typically in in the countries where voting is mandatory, like for example Brazil, where my ex-wife was from, she the people there, they get paid off very easily. People are buying vote on the way to the polls because everybody has to go to the polls. It's a national holiday. So if you just see people walking to the polls, you just walk up and give them some money to go vote for these people on the way in. It just, there's a lot more corruption and stuff around the election because you got all these people that they really do not care, and they do not want to be there, and they just go in there and they'll vote for anybody for any old reason, and it has nothing to do with the issues or current events. It's just a random vote.
I regress. I really do. Okay, about 3 minutes left in this segment. So I'm going to ask you another question. And this is about, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying about the polls. I just don't believe the polls because you and I are boots on the ground. We talk to real people. And I'm just telling you, I feel like Trump's much more ahead than what the polls are saying, because I know some people, relatives, who are diehard Democrats, and they say they're either not going to vote or they say they're going to vote for Trump, which I almost had a heart attack. One of my cousins who said that. So, but,
well,
I'm seeing more and more of that.
Yeah, I'm sort of skeptical of polls too. I'm hoping polls have improved over the last 8 years. In 2016, it sure looked, based on the polls, as if Hillary Clinton would win pretty handily, and she didn't win. And so, that delegitimized quite a bit of the polling industry. And I don't know how well the polling industry did in 2020. I don't know, but I know that it worked very hard to improve its math and its processes and approaches. And so we'll see what happens in 2024. But again, the thing with politics is that, a week in politics is like years. I mean, so much can happen in a week. Even what the news cycle is saying in the morning is very different from what the news cycle is saying in the evening when you go to bed. And so polls can switch so much. And you look at something that happened like on Saturday, and Iran attacks Israel, and the United States starts shooting down Iranian drones, and so does the RAF over in the UK. Now all of a sudden you got a game changer. Now you're looking at a totally different situation than you were looking at on Friday when you went home from work for the weekend. So, who knows how many things like that will happen between now and election day.
That's true. Landscape always changes, but there's one fact you can't renege on this one. Okay, so it's like for the past 6 years, folks have said we got the smoking gun on Trump now. I don't know how many we're all yawning now. I mean, it's just like again. I mean that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
playing
any effect.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like today.
Yeah, whose mind is it supposed to change at this point? I mean, people are either going to. It's at this point. I think it actually is having a harmful effect, because I think more people start. The more that there's lawfare, so to speak, the more people start to sympathize with Trump. So like, this feels unfair. This seems unfair. Like this seems like the weaponization of the legal profession and not like a legitimate thing. It's just one thing after another, and that's going to make him more popular, not less. And
he's not having to pay for this advertisement. I mean, he's getting
That's
free
true.
advertisement with all of this. Yeah. Alan, we're going to have to call it a day. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Thank you, Donna. Always great to be here.
You take care.
All right.
Always great to be with you. And thank you guys so much for watching Donna's Edge. Definitely appreciate it. Send emails, Donna@donnasedge.com. See you next time. Bye-bye.